Aliko Dangote, Africa's wealthiest individual and the chairman of the Dangote Group, has announced plans to build 20,000 megawatts of power generation capacity. That single figure is worth pausing on, because Nigeria's entire installed electricity generation capacity today stands at approximately 13,000 megawatts, and a significant portion of that is not consistently operational due to infrastructure constraints. What Dangote is describing, if it materializes, would not be in addition to Nigeria's grid, it would be a structural transformation of it. This video examines where that announcement came from, what else Dangote is simultaneously building, what the realistic path to execution looks like, and what the consequences are if this scale of private industrial investment in Africa either succeeds or falls short. The announcement came during an interview with Mokhtar Diop, the managing director of the International Finance Corporation, the private sector lending arm of the World Bank Group. Dangote stated plainly that the group is moving into power at the 20,000 megawatt scale, and he placed that alongside what he described as Africa's most fundamental unmet needs: energy, fertilizers, and industrial inputs. The IFC setting matters. The International Finance Corporation exists specifically to mobilize private investment in emerging markets, and a conversation between Diop and Dangote in that context is not casual commentary. It is the kind of dialogue that precedes structured financing discussions, even if no specific terms have been disclosed. To understand why Dangote is making this move now, you need to understand the financial position his group has reached. The Dangote Petroleum Refinery and Petrochemicals Facility, a $20 billion project located outside Lagos, is the centerpiece of that position. The refinery has a current processing capacity of 650,000 barrels of crude oil per day and is being scaled toward 1.4 million barrels per day. If that expansion is completed, it would make the facility one of the largest single-site refineries anywhere in the world. The refinery has already improved Nigeria's domestic fuel supply and increased regional availability of petroleum products, particularly during periods when global supply chains faced pressure from tensions in the Middle East. Dangote has stated that the group's cash flow is now very strong and that its asset structure gives it the flexibility to raise additional capital. That is the financial foundation from which the power project is being launched. The fertilizer dimension of the announcement adds another layer. Dangote stated that within approximately 2.5 years, the group expects to become the largest fertilizer company in the world, with a target production capacity of 12 million tons of urea annually. To support that, the group is opening mining operations for potash and phosphate in the Democratic Republic of Congo and in Brazil, and is constructing what Dangote described as the largest deep-sea port with an 18-meter draft. A liquefied natural gas operation is also in development. Taken together, these are not incremental expansions of an existing business. They represent a simultaneous push across energy, agriculture, logistics, and extractive industries that, if executed on the described timeline, would constitute one of the largest private industrial programs on the African continent in the post-independence era. The power sector context in Nigeria sharpens why 20,000 megawatts is such a significant target. Nigeria has a population of over 220 million people and is the largest economy in Africa by GDP. Yet its electricity system has been chronically underperforming relative to demand for decades. The 13,000 megawatts of installed generation capacity is itself a misleading figure, because actual available capacity on any given day is considerably lower due to gas supply shortages, transmission bottlenecks, and distribution infrastructure failures. Industrial and commercial operations across the country run extensively on privately owned diesel generators, which represent a substantial ongoing cost to businesses and a drag on economic productivity. A reliable addition of 20,000 megawatts from a single private actor would, on paper, more than double Nigeria's theoretical generation base. The question is not whether that scale of capacity would matter. It clearly would. The question is whether it can be financed, built, and connected to transmission and distribution infrastructure that is itself in need of significant investment. Consider the first scenario. Dangote secures the financing, likely through a combination of the group's own cash flows, development finance institutions, including potentially the IFC, and commercial debt, and begins phased construction of the power capacity over a period of several years. Even delivering a fraction of the 20,000 megawatt target on a reliable basis would materially reduce the cost burden on Nigerian industry, improve household electricity access, and create the kind of infrastructure conditions that attract further private investment. For the fertilizer and refinery operations specifically, reliable power is not a peripheral benefit. It is an operational necessity. The power project and the industrial projects are mutually reinforcing in ways that give Dangote a structural incentive that other private power investors in Nigeria have not had. In the second scenario, the financing gap proves wider than current cash flows can bridge, and the timeline extends or contracts significantly. Large infrastructure projects of this type routinely encounter cost overruns, regulatory delays, and grid integration challenges. Nigeria's electricity sector has seen numerous large-scale investment announcements over the past 2 decades that did not reach completion on their original terms. If the 20,000 megawatt plan follows that pattern, it would still represent a significant private sector signal. The stated intent matters for investor perception, but the on-the-ground impact would be limited until concrete construction milestones are reached and independently verified. What Dangote stated in his interview with Diop goes beyond the specifics of any single project. He framed his investments as a demonstration to other investors that commercially viable, large-scale projects are possible in Africa. His argument is that capital follows demonstrated precedent and that the refinery, the fertilizer plant, and now the power project are meant to function as proof of concept for the continent as an investment destination. That logic applies most directly to the African Development Bank, the IFC, sovereign wealth funds, and the international institutional investors who assess country and sector risk based partly on what comparable private actors have already achieved. What to watch going forward is the financing structure when it is disclosed, the sequencing of construction phases if the project moves to groundbreaking, and whether the IFC or other development finance institutions formally commit capital. Those 3 data points will tell you whether this is a capitalized program or an announced ambition. And in infrastructure, that distinction is everything.